fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. The secret of changes is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but building the new. Socrates. Transitions happen throughout our lives that cause us to make unexpected changes. As an adult, I know that far too well. Whether having a job or becoming a new parent, those are some new starts that I had to make adjustments to. But I can remember my earliest days when I stayed in Oakland, California. That was a challenge. And there was a few new starts because we moved around a lot. But there was a couple of instances that happened as a child that I can remember that I was wishing for the new start. And one of those instances was I was cutting up in class, actually just talking mess with my little cousin in kindergarten, that far back. You know, I'm a little old guy. And one of the things happened, she told us to be quiet numerous times. And her name was Miss Battles. And I remember her bringing this big, long ruler. And she said, if you guys don't stop cutting up, you're going to get a paddle. And so she made us stick our hands out and she slapped our hands with this paddle. So we had to figure out how we're going to get along in class without ever receiving another, pat with this paddle. And the second, and my mom wasn't too happy with it. The second instance was I was in second grade and I remember I had a bully. And I tried to avoid this bully at all costs. But this guy kept messing with me. And what ended up happening was, needless to say, I fought the bully. And then I won the fight. So I got sent to the office with this guy. And the principal, he paddled me. He didn't paddle the other guy. So they called my mother. My mother come up there and give a few choice words that I won't say on here. But she gave him a tongue lashing. And needless to say, we moved out of that school eventually. And then we transitioned to Sacramento. Why am I saying this? A lot of times in life, we are forced to make these unexpected changes. We go through these cycles in life where we get really, really comfortable with things and then bam, change happens. You got to move. Baby's born. Got to get a new job. And all these things send us through these emotional roller coasters. So sometimes the habit of realizing that life is full of these new starts can help us keep our emotions intact, give us that emotional stability. Because I know going through life as a young man into adulthood, having all these new starts, I went through all kinds of emotional roller coasters. I was afraid. I was full of joy sometimes, full of peace because of the environment that I grew up in. And it was very challenging, but we made the best of it. But I remember being a trucker and going through, I've been a trucker for 19 years or so. And about 15 years of that was very grueling work, backbreaking. It wasn't always just driving a truck around. I had to make deliveries. So I've had a few surgeries. So I got to a point where I was like, you know what, I got to make a change in my life. And so when I made this change, it was very uncomfortable. And I was almost deathly afraid because I was so familiar with that way of living because I knew that was my source of income. I knew that it was going to provide for my family, my kids, all those things. And then I just had to make that transition. So when I left trucking, I became an actor and a speaker. And I will say it was very, very alarming at times trying to remember a script and then go before someone and, recite for the audition. And going through those were those new starts for me. But in order for me to make it and be successful in anything that I do or anything that we do, we have to be okay with these new starts. It can be a challenge, yes, no problem. But understand that this is something that we do throughout our life. Make it a habit to be okay with new starts. There's a couple of key things that I had to do when asking myself this question, because throughout my life, that's what I did. I asked myself about the new starts. One, was I ready for it? What was I going to do to get this thing going, this side of my life, right? And so this was a challenge that I had to, these steps. I was like, man, am I really ready for this thing? But what I started noticing was if I wrote it down, if I made the vision of where I was going very plain, I was going to be okay. So the couple of key points I want you to take away with this is that, number one, you got to be intentional. Life is full of new starts. Be okay with those new starts. And sometimes those new starts can be painful, but be intentional about embracing those new starts. Matter of fact, how about this? The coronavirus came in 7 months, then caused all kind of havoc. We're doing things right now that we've never done before. We're being forced to stay in the house. We're being forced to stay away from our families. We're being forced to stay away from jobs and going to church and all these different things causing division. But we have to make this adjustment. So we have to be intentional, even when it's forced upon us. Number two, write down your goals. You got to do some goal setting. Maybe one of the things you could do is get a vision board. Because sometimes the best way to embrace these new challenges in life is to have the vision right before you. Number three, you got to be consistent. You can't start today and then put it down tomorrow. If you really want to get somewhere in life, you got to be a little bit more consistent, right? It's okay. In number four, it's okay to reward yourself. Sometimes you got to do it just to let you know that you're on the right track. I don't know what your reward is. Mine might be a cupcake or a scoop of ice cream, but I'm gonna get that reward nonetheless. And then the key thing that I just want to leave with you guys is that even though you have this new start, you got to be okay with knowing that it may not turn out the way you expected, but it's a part of life. Toastmaster.